to you. I'd like to welcome everyone. Thank you very much for inviting us to this conference and to the roundtable discussion. My name is Anna Trapos. I'm a psychologist, children's psychologist, and I am also part of the Association for Children's Rights. And here, as Marta mentioned, we want to listen to you with an open mind and open ears. And now, Roland Marcos, Piarist provenance, monk. It is always good to be with youngsters. It is a very unique situation. So let's just start our discussion. Maybe first of all, I'd like to pass the floor to the girls. Julti, can you just introduce yourself in short? Partly just to try the mic too anyway, but then you can also then start talking. Julia Csokai. I study in the San Francis High School. Margareta Canyo. I also am a student at the same high school. It's good to be here. Katalin Halmi Katus. I go to the same school, to the San Francis High School. Balin Dushak. I go to the next door, the Piarists, and I'm very pleased to be here. Christoph Jutai. I also attend the Piarist school. We go to the same year. And thank you for inviting me. Mátyás Laszko. I am also in the very same high school. I'm just graduating from the Piarists. Thank you. Up until now, we've done everything that we discussed we would do. Well, when it comes to roundtable discussions, it is very important to set the framework first. But we didn't tell them the questions first, and obviously then we don't know what the answers would be. So the boys are studying just next door, as we heard, and it reminded me of a story which happened to me when I was in elementary school or primary school. So it was, I think, in December when our student was trying to teach us, and Karchi really wanted to say something, and he kept raising his hand, and then at some point he just said, "I have right, I have right." And then the teacher, out of instincts, said, "No, you have no rights, you only have obligations." So that's what the teacher said. What I would like to ask you, based on this story, so obviously, a school has a pedagogical program, house order, but the question is, it might be a difficult one, but anyway, what's your view on obligations, on framework or influence? Is it actually the power, whoever is in power, who decides who is right? Well, it depends on the teachers. Some teachers, well, are very much only focusing on the power, and they want to show that we need to show respect by just listening to him and accepting whatever he is telling us. Well, to some extent, I do understand it, but sometimes it is a bit hurtful that they don't think that I might have my own opinion that I would like to also voice. Yeah, we are going to school because we have the right to go to school, and of course the obligatory school age is 16 in Hungary, and we are all over 16. And then you might ask why we're still there. But of course, it's good to study. It's good to go to school. But in a way, we are also kind of imposing some hurdles to each other. So, for example, when we chat during a maths class, I am one of those kids, but then we are actually disturbing others, And well, so I have the right to just express my opinion about anything, for example, that I like lunch. But at the same time, the child next to me has the right to study. And she wants to, let's say, for example, listen to the maths teacher. Well, in this situation, I would like to mention that if we work within an institution, and obviously the institution has some rules, and if we are admitted to, for example, a particular school, then there are certain rules that we then indirectly or directly accept, and we can't limit these. And for example, when it comes to school classes, that's the very situation. The schools have been invented for us to study. And of course, everyone has the right to express their opinion, but at the right time, in the right place. And a school class, even if it's sometimes very boring and dry, that's not the right time for it. So we need to designate other times and spaces. Well, that might be right. So since the 3rd week of September, I haven't been interested in this. Do you have anything you would like to add? Well, I was going to say the same thing, what you just said. So it depends on the environment or the location. Which right should be given priority? So, for example, in school, we are supposed to learn. So when it comes to discussions or expressing opinions, maybe, well, that should not enjoy priority because others want to study. However, if in the afternoon we are ganging, just to learn this new word, with our friends, and just have fun together. And if someone wants to have the maths textbooks with him and says, "Oh, shut up! I want to study," then of course he doesn't have the right. So because in that particular situation, I think another type of right should be given priority to. Yeah, I have another idea concerning power in school. I think there is a trend, at least in our school, that the teachers try to involve children in how and what to study. So we are often asked, and there are some events like this. Obviously, this one is unique, but still. But we have events when we discuss things, when we are told that they want to cooperate with us. But when there is a huge milestone, when there is a huge collision between the authorities, the ones in power, and us, then it is always the opinion of the teachers that counts. So sometimes it seems like a double standard. So they do say, "Oh, we want to ask your opinion," but it doesn't really happen very often that what we want would happen. I think that's the same. So obviously we are going to church-run schools, and often we have some sort of a uniform in. So anyway, there are regulations concerning kind of dress codes and makeups and so on, more so than in state schools. And that's always a subject of discussion. And there was a huge compromise shown by our teachers that the T-shirts provided by the school, this is San Francisco school, we are supposed to, for example, wear the same jumper every day, and later by year 10 you realize that it's not something you would like to do, maybe for hygienic reasons. But because we complained and we kept pushing it, we could do it. Yeah, you discussed it. So we went to the school afterwards. So I don't know how exactly it happened, but I know that the students board played a crucial role in it. So they had lots of discussions, and there was a discussion about it for 100 years prior to that, that we did not want to wear this uniform. There are some stories that I want to share with you. But now this is basically leads us to a different story.
I really like what you've been saying, and something comes to my mind, an own story about when I was young. And when we were preparing for this round table, I was just thinking how I would have dealt with this topic at the age of 16 or 17, and several stories came to my mind. The one that I would like to share with you is the following. When I passed the entrance exam to the university, to Budapest, before that I lived outside of Budapest, and when my family said goodbye, he gave me a so-called CD about legislation, legal things, and he said, now it's your responsibility to know what applies to you, all these laws, all this legislation. I most probably do not even remember that back then there was these CDs for data storage. So I took this CD with me about all the laws of Hungary, and I put it on my bookshelf, and I know that it was there, but somehow I didn't deal with it. I know that I did not study law. I know that those are legal texts, all kinds of legislation. But when I was preparing for today's roundtable, back then I thought that is my private thing. I have this CD about Hungarian legislation, and anytime I have an issue, I can turn to that. And now I thought, well, laws are not something belonging to the domain of privacy, but if something happens in your school, in the community, these are common affairs. And now that I'm listening to all of you, you're all different, you have all different strengths, and if you are there in a school situation, you might find yourselves in a situation that you then discuss among yourselves. So my question is, how far do you discuss that if somebody was insulted? Is it a common affair? Is it that you discuss? Well, our class community is very good in my case. I'm happy to report about that. So if anyone has a problem, even if there's a dispute between two pupils or between a pupil and a teacher, then the class tries to solve the problem together and also ask together for help if that's necessary. So it really depends on the pupils, on the community, the class community, because some just accept that if there is a problem and if something happened. But in our case, we really have a good class community. Well, that's really true. Now we are a developing community on the right track. But if something happens within the class that we wouldn't want to share with the teacher, but something a commonplace. For example, last year we got a new classmate, and it was not easy to get on with him. And then we all talked about how we should deal with him. So this new classmate joined us half a year later than the class community was formed. And everyone discussed this issue with his friends, and these so-called gangs decided that what the strengths and, so to say, weaknesses of that particular girl was who joined the class. But then somehow the community was formed, and everybody had her own opinion. I do believe that it's also the head teacher's role. A lot of things depend on the personality of the head teacher. In my case, we have a really good head teacher. So if, for example, we have religious training, and we have to be at the bus stop very early in the morning. It's not always easy, but trust is placed in us and responsibility, and we feel that it is something important, and we are treated as mature persons, and for us it is important. And we really appreciate this. I maybe misunderstood the question, but it's very hard for me to imagine that if something happens in the class that we do not discuss that. Well, at the back of our classroom in September, a couch was placed, an old couch. And in the break, mainly the 10 of us are there on this couch. And if something happens, and this is there on this couch, that we discuss it. So after the class, you just tell all your problems to the others. And I just cannot imagine that if there is a problem, that I keep it to myself. It's hard for me to imagine that kind of situation, or even to imagine that there is a community and we still do not share our problems with the others. It's hard for me to imagine. So you really dare to discuss these problems and issues, I guess, and you have these. And do you dare to tell your problems to your teachers or to other adults in school? Well, I guess that in all communities there is a so-called leading person. In our case, in our class, we have 2 or 3 boys who are central persons in this class. They are, everybody's laughing on them, so they are the class clowns, so to say. And they also like to share gossips, so to say. And they so they receive information from me, and I receive information from them. And so this is a kind of to and from situation. And I think it's excellent that we can share stories with one another. And this is how there is reconnection among us, among the classmates. And now we have a boy class, and there are gossips. So if there is a class excursion, for example, it's not kind of hiking, but then we really discuss issues. So we really have gossip going on. So if you go to school and if you spend 5 minutes in the morning before classes begin, gangs can develop, and then stories are being shared. And if there's anything, if anyone has a problem, this is just thrown into the common space, so to say, and we discuss that and we reflect on that. Of course, it's important to see that there are no teachers around, but if, for example, somebody got a really bad mark, and then he just shouts out, and it's not really good if the head teacher is there, even if sometimes this happens. But we as a boy class, we do have gossip going on, and we do discuss matters. I believe it's very important to trust one another, to have an atmosphere full of trust. And yes, we do also have a lot of gossip going on, the girls among one another. And it's really important to have a relationship based on trust, so that we dare to share with one another our problems. Just adding to this, what the question of Roland, so if there is a teacher, whether we have a teacher who we dare to share such problems, I believe that head teachers have a huge responsibility in this regard. We are in a lucky situation that I guess we have an excellent head teacher, and if he sees that there is a conflict going on with a teacher or between pupils, very often it's he the one initiating the discussion about this. And it's important that not only the pupils initiate such discussions, but also the head teacher. I think it also depends on how old the head teacher is, because we have the religious teacher, for example, who is a young Franciscan brother, and it is really, we can discuss almost everything with him, and it's so excellent. We can really share our problems with him, and I really like that. So maybe with our head teacher it would be more difficult, even if he is also very good. Yes, the religion teacher is a big help. He listens to all our problems also with other teachers. If we have religion class, we have a Franciscan religion teacher, so we have a divided boys and girls group when it comes to religion class. And then the religion teacher for boys discusses issues with them, and then we have our own religion teacher. So it's so good. Now it seems that we are getting to know really secrets from your everyday lives in school. Yes, so it seems that you are in a safe space, so to say, in school. In the leading words, it was being said that we will deal with the topic safety in school, but now, but distancing ourselves from gossips, what happens if there is really a touchy issue, if there is something delicate going on, for example, bullying or abusing? How do you deal with such an issue if you, for example, are the witness of something like this going on? I was thinking about this on the way to this conference, whether such a thing is present. I believe that we over, so to say, abusing in our class in a way, but I believe that such tensions really eased and dissolved since our last class excursion, because we all were really unkind to a classmate at the beginning of the year. So towards one particular classmate, we were not really, well, it was not, of course, physical abuse, but we were just passive with her. We were just not really kind with her. But I believe that after this class excursion, these tensions eased, and the head teacher was a big help in this. And also concerning alcohol, he said that we will be able to drink if he brings the alcohol. And we said, okay, he promised this, and when he will bring alcohol, then we will be able to drink that. And do you remember what happened to this classmate who was, so to say, mentally abused by the class? Well, actually, this classmate didn't really want to be part of the community. She was in her own world. So if I am in a community that is non-religious, for example, or if I'm, for example, a scout, and if I tell somebody that I believe in God and I'm a scout and I have these principles, and then people, this classmate was something like this. For her, it was very strange that somebody is a believer, somebody is a cloud, even though she was also a member in this religious school. But it was very good that we could discuss this whole issue, and the tensions were eased. After half a year in our school, well, we came to a school that is absolutely complying with our values, family values. So there is absolutely congruence between the values of the school and the values in our families, and that's very good. It would have been much more difficult if I had gone to a non-religious school. So it was a really big help for me. Yes, and I think this trust that we have in our school is important, that we are in this really old, ancient building location, the oldest part of the school. It's really ancient. It's really familiar, so to say. All other parts of the school are modern, but we, the 34 of us, we are in a small classroom, and it's really cozy, so to say. And this also helps in evolving an atmosphere of trust. Just adding to this, I would like to share with you that there's been a research on abusing and bullying in communities, and it was found that kids who have strong opinions of their own, they also, even so, they expect the support of the person leading the community. So it's very important to be able to turn to someone. So this is it's so important to have a good relationship with one's teachers. It's no secret. Probably most of you how did we call? Um, there was a training organized by the monks' office, student workshop. So this is how we, so to say, selected you for this conference. You are scout leader. Marty is also leader of a youth, another youth group. So you're all kinds of leaders in youth groups. So you are all present in your communities. And what I want to get to that I don't want to deal only with the relationships between pupils and teachers, but also between pupils and pupils. For example, what do you as youth leaders do to create a safe space in all the communities where you're present? Well, for me, sometimes it's a huge challenge. In my scout, there are 7 girls. 5 of them are in a religious school, and there are 2 extra. And the family background of one of these girls is also very difficult, and she was diagnosed with anorexia not long ago. And I now have the feeling that this community, the scout community, and what I can give her became even more important to her. This is why, for example, I call her 3 times a week, and I am a safe and secure point for her, and it's good, but it's also difficult to know that her family cannot give her this support. And in my scout group, the girls are younger than me, uh, and not much younger, and I have to deal with this kind of double role of being a friend and being a reader, and where is the border between the two? And it's not often important to be regarded as a leader, but if there is still a serious situation, for example, no electricity, and one has to react to this situation, it's important that I am being regarded as a leader who can deal with such a situation. For example, I am in the Pires province, together with boys, and I deal with boys. I have this kind of community. So they are in grade 8, and there are 20 of them. And I remember when I got to the secondary school at the age of 12, I was really afraid of everything. There were the big boys, grade 12, and they were standing in the queue before me for lunch, and I had to wait for 40 more minutes. But there is a good saying, that young boys should just be patient, and I promise myself that when I get to grade 12, I won't behave the same way as they did. And I do believe that there is a much better atmosphere now in the school, a much more friendly atmosphere, and my leaders helped me a lot, and they meant a lot to me because in the afternoon, for example, there were good discussions going on. There were older boys about to enter university, and we had great discussions on life. And this is something that I also strive for achieving. So once a week, we meet for 1.5 hours, and we are together, and there, of course, pedagogy has to be present too, so there are some certain frameworks. But what is the most important when it comes to leaders is that even in your free time, you should watch out for them and look for the how you can able to be connect with them. So.
So it's important to have some sort of a contact with older kids. Often they are over-idealized. And some sort of a trust needs to be established, and that's what we need to work on. And we need to listen to them. That's also important. So it's important to listen and ask questions back, and just to have conversations. That's important. Regone. I'm not a leader. I will maybe start next year. And but I can see examples of others how it should be done. Our leaders were leaders, and what you could feel that they are kind of superior to you. And about 3 years ago, it kind of dissolved, and they consider us as friends now, and we have a very different kind of communication now. And it's very good to see that we are not treated as small kids anymore, and they don't consider themselves as just leaders, but they are now able to communicate with us the way we talk to each other with our peers. So it's very important not to communicate with kids as superiors. You must just put that aside and remember that you're partners and communicate this way. I gave up Scouts when I came to this school. And I didn't know in advance, of course, but, well, here in our school, they were very similar when we started school. But then COVID came, and then everyone changed so much in the 2 years of COVID. And obviously, we have a class, so we are all equal. Of course, we have basically a student board, but all the student board does is just trying to postpone tests if no one prepared, but that's the only task. But well, I try to say that when I was with the Scouts, I was there in the activities every week, and we had kids who were, let's say, 2 years younger than me. And, well, so what I'm trying to say is that here in my school, obviously, I don't select my classmates. I can't, however, exit. But still, somehow, with the school boys here, I am very friendly with. So obviously, I don't have 34 friends, but I have some sort of connection with them, a friendly connections. But if we, for example, have school trips and we, let's say, share the room, then all of a sudden our connection gets much deeper. And even though we didn't pick each other as classmates, we still share something in common. I was in year 4 when I started with brownies or scones, and then my and I never heard of Regnum, and my schoolmates started to join the Regnum, and I had no idea what it was, but I heard that they have great trips, and I was interested, and I was quite surprised because I could see that the leaders of Regnum, they start their leading role much later, because in the brownies I was, we started at, let's say, at the age of 14, and they only started at 17. Yes, we started about 17 or 18. I was quite surprised that you have such a huge age gaps. But this year, I can see that 3 or 4 kids in our class do the course to become a leader in Regnum, and I am still with the brownies, and I did it last year, even though there are so many similarities. But still, there seems to be some sort of a fight between the brownies and this Regnum group, even though obviously there are so many similarities. And I think it has a huge influence on you, which community you belong to. So this is a very influential thing. And I think every community has some sort of a fight. So I think the Regnums are more religious. Yes, they are. So yeah, well, when we talk about security and limits and rights, well, there is a close link to responsibility. Of course, you take a lot of responsibilities. For example, as peer leaders, you have to take responsibility for others. Beata, as a leader in the Brownies, which is the Girl Scout group, you have to create some sort of an environment for children that are just a bit younger than you, and you create some sort of a community culture. So this is a huge responsibility. But does this responsibility also have a kind of online, not just an offline space outside, for example, the school? Well, we talked about the COVID time shortly. We don't really want to talk about it too much, but I'd like to refer to a study that was quite interesting. So this study came to the conclusion that between 2014 and 2017, children up to the age of 24, 56%, there was a 56% increase in terms of suicidal thoughts and suicide itself. This is not a Hungarian study. This is an international study I'm referring to. And the researchers found that it is very closely linked to internet usage. And obviously, internet has a lot of advantages, but also a lot of disadvantages. So the question is, how do you navigate in this online space? I think there are so many areas us adults don't even realize what you can see or what you get close to on the internet. And who do you contact when you see something that is sensitive? Actually, when we are talking about rights, of course, we know that in the internet there is unfortunately no right to be forgotten. Whatever is put out there will stay there. So how do you experience this? My parents are rather strict on that. I have 2 younger siblings. My younger brother is 1.5 years younger than me, and my sister is only 10. And my mother actually worked in this area, and she was very strict about it. And she told us that we can only use Messenger, but not Facebook, to have some sort of social life, of course. And Instagram, well, I still don't have any Instagram account, and no Snapchat, and nothing of that kind. And looking at my classmates, I don't mind, because now the boys play chess all the time instead of TikTok, and that's so great and much better than what we had last year. And also they told us that they can see how much time and energy these social platforms stole from them, but it's difficult to stop. My parents are also quite strict on that, and they were very consistent in monitoring what I do. I have Facebook and Instagram. However, they do control it. I'm not saying that they check everything I do, but I do share it with them. And they can see that I am in compliance with the rules, so that I only share photos with my friends. I never put anything out there for anyone to be able to see it. So, and so I only put up some pictures to all if there is nothing on it really. And I can see it on myself, but also on some boys in my class, that it is so much better to go to school seeing the boys playing chess games instead of the stupid social media, and they actually train their brains rather than their thumb by moving up on Instagram. And when I just look at them, it just makes me feel so good that they play chess now. Maybe it's self-evident, but we are the first generation that grew up with social media. So we were born and we grew together with social media. And I think this is the generation that is trying to figure out how to deal with that. And when we were 12, we just were in it. And I think it's very difficult to navigate this because of that. My parents weren't that restrictive in this. Of course, when I was younger, they were, but they weren't very strict. And of course, if a small child has a smartphone and is told by the parents, don't set up this account, then of course he would say, yes, of course I won't, but of course they will. And I'm not saying that it was very unpleasant, that if I had, I'm not saying that I had any unpleasant situations, but it could have been the case. You can actually put, yourself into risky situations. I think it's very important that if you, for example, have an Instagram account, you can have private accounts. So when I post to friends, I don't really mind what I post because they know me very well, and obviously they will not judge me based on a video or just a post because they know exactly who I am and how I am. So, and I can be very rational about it and down to earth about it. And I think the age limits are very important. I'm not quite sure how it works with Instagram. So I think the age limit is 15 or 16, obviously, in terms of when you can set up your profile. Anyway, so I think that should be very important to limit it. Because if a young child is on Instagram, it can cause a lot of troubles. And actually, the right to express your opinion comes into picture in this context, of course. Okay, let me just share some things with you. Well, you post something, and okay, obviously, what you've just said was a conscious decision that you obviously don't post anything that you shouldn't. But obviously, it does happen in your environment. So what do you do if someone posts something that you think he shouldn't or she shouldn't? My mum taught it all to me, how I should do a private profile. So to be honest, I think I went on Instagram without being allowed to, and my mum noticed, and then she said, okay, if you've already downloaded Instagram, then let's just have a look how you should do it. And she was very good at teaching me, okay, you need to press this and you need to do that. And when I was downloading TikTok or Snapchat or anything else, then I knew, okay, what to do. And that really helped me. And that really stuck with me, that, for example, I can only share anything just with friends. I am actually quite paranoid about these things. I'm really worried that something would be out there on the internet about me that, well, that I don't want to, and that maybe not just my friends would be able to see. And therefore, I really, really limit myself. So I don't post anything. I just look at some photos with, and I basically just use it for communication. And I don't use Facebook. I do have Messenger, but I only download it at a time when you didn't have to register for Facebook for that. And so my parents really taught me step by step. And I never had, so they never told me off when I downloaded it. They just said, okay, instead of telling me off for downloading Instagram without their permissions, they just wanted to teach me. Yeah, it was very important. My mom told me in year 5 that she didn't want me to be on these platforms. Then she also gave me arguments for that, and I really understood it. And I think it's very important that I can see on the generations above me that not all of them know how to use it, especially the older ones. So I keep telling, for example, people, oh, you need to hang it up with the red bottom. So it's sometimes a bit funny that I need to teach people about something the adults should know in order to be able to teach us. And I need to teach them how to post and what to post. Well, if you don't mind, can I just take over the floor? Unfortunately, soon we need to finish this panel discussion. Well, you mentioned lots of tense situation. Well, for example, you need to express your opinion, but your mom might say you need to be a bit more kind of careful how you say and what you say and when you say things. So, in your opinion, how should a dialogue take place between you and your teachers and you and your parents when some decision needs to be made? Well, I think within the students or among us, it actually works. So, for example, in our class, I don't think we need to define the communication in any way, because I think we do listen to each other. We have our own opinion. Often we disagree, but there's nothing wrong with that. So it's just important that you listen to each other, right? Yes. But at home now, I have more and more problems with that. I used to be very quiet at home but now I start to tell my parents what I think, and they don't always like it, because obviously they are right that often I don't express myself in a kind way, but often I'm just so fed up by them telling me, oh yes, you will tell me later because I'm so much in a rush now. And it just really hurts my feelings when they don't even have 3 minutes to listen to me. But when they later on ask me, okay, what did you want to say? I actually quite like it, but often I am then in a situation when I don't feel like talking to them. And then they think, oh yes, they are rejected, but they can't see the background, because at the time, I wanted to share something with them, but 2-3 hours later, I'm actually in a state of mind when I don't want to talk anymore. So it's not about rejecting them. Yeah. So we need to not only listen, but we need to also feel when to listen, right? Yes, it would be very important to me to have a feeling when they can communicate with me. Yeah, a recurring motive for me when there is a conflict with my parents or with teachers. Well, often I think I am right, and what I keep hearing from third parties is, oh, don't mind, just don't care. So just let them to it. That's what people keep telling me, but I think often there's nothing wrong with what I say. I don't say silly things, but it really makes me angry when they tell me to just leave it to it, because then it's more peaceful when I'm told that, oh, the teacher won't change because he's been teaching here for 30 years and it's not going to change for you. And then you just say that makes no sense. Then maybe I really should leave it to them. Is it respect? Well, there are a reactive and a positive approach to respect. Well, and also you need to have stamina. Well, I think I am a rather stubborn person. That's the feedback I get. And if I and to be honest, often when I during the argument realize that I'm wrong, I keep saying that, whatever I started saying. I have less conflicts now with my sister and my brother, especially because my brother is nearly the same age as me, and I also have less conflicts with my parents because they realize that I've changed, and because I'm now a bit older, so I don't need to be told to go to the toilet. And also in our class, well, there are 34 people in a very tiny room, and well, whoever is louder will win. It just reminds me to keep on. So you must remember that you have the right to express your opinions, but it is a process. So if you want to enforce some rights, which obviously does not violate anyone else's right, if you do that, if you insist on your rights, that triggers changes in your environment. It has an impact on your environment. You trigger changes, and that will have an impact on you. Maybe not right away, but later. So you will have an impact. Yes, quite recently we had a huge fight because one of our teachers sometimes uses funny nicknames for girls, but we don't really like it. But in the past 30 years, no one told him that we don't really like it.
And I believe if somebody would just stand up and say that I have a problem with this, I don't like this. But if we don't do this, then the others, then people just tend to neglect it. And this is what has been done in the past 30 years. Okay, we just silently, so to say, suffer, and this has been a big problem. And I believe our religion teacher helped us a lot in this respect and told us that we should really stand up if we have a problem. But it's sometimes difficult if there is a teacher who is much older than you and everybody is afraid of him. Why should we, the 16 of us, be the ones standing up and saying that we don't like this, and if you even get some kind of punishment for this, a bad mark or something, a minus? Yes, because teachers have the right to give, for example, a bad mark or a minus. So these acts of, so to say, punishment. So this is why it's not so easy to make this kind of decision. Do you want to stand up and tell what you really mean, what you really think, and are you ready to deal with the so to say punishments for this? Well, as for us children, we all are afraid of the consequences. What would happen if we would stand up together and tell him that we don't like this, what he's doing, and we say, no, well, I don't dare to say that because I'm afraid that at the end of the year it will lead to the fact that I will fail because he will organize that. So, well, after the religion class, we discussed this matter in class, and I was the one in this debate and arguing for that we should stand up together and say that we don't like to be called Bibi and having all these nicknames used by him. So I was saying, okay, Now we have the next lesson. Now let's stand up together. But I was surprised to see that the others were not ready to do so. So if there is this concrete situation, then the fear will be present. And I myself was also afraid to say that, sir, please, well, we don't like to be called this and that when it's the seventh class and chemistry is coming. Now we are nearly at the end of this roundtable discussion. However, it would be good to have some concluding words before we start with the coffee break. There are many experts are present here among us, and you as children, you as pupils, we really want to listen to what you need, what your opinion is now. We would like to ask you to formulate your messages to the experts being here among us who are dealing with these issues, who are dealing with how they could support you the best as possible. I think what is important for a child at the age of 12, 13, 14, where they already have an idea, concept of the world, and education, religion, school plays their important role. However, we are often dealt with by adults. Oh, you're just a child. I know this. I have the experience, and you are just a child. You're just about to learn all this. We learn a lot. There are many subjects, and now the interests are developing. What path we want to have in the future. So even in the case of a serious matter, we could actually have an opinion, but adults think that this is not so important because we are just children. And for me, this is the most important. Yes, indeed, those having immediate connection to us, teachers, for example, that they should find the right communication with us, because in the case of older teachers, that was another tradition. It was like there were the adults and there were the children, and there was a huge border between the two. But when there are some younger teachers or monks who see the changes, who see that we are already another generation with other needs and so on, they have much more attention. It's good that they listen to us, they spend time with us, whereas older teachers about to retire, well, they say, well, do as I tell you, otherwise you will have problems. That's their attitude, and that's problematic. Yes, being listened to is important too, but not only being listened to, but and then doing nothing, but then dealing what we have said, so that there should be a follow-up on what we said. That would be important. So nowadays, I'm thinking about the balance between when it's time to accept what adults say as they say it, and when it's time for us to have our own concepts and our own opinions. So to find the right balance, what could be the golden rule, the golden balance in such matters? I would also add to this that, yes, adults should please also accept that we have problems too. Of course, adults definitely have other kinds of problems. We all know that. But, okay, we might have smaller problems, but to us, it's our life. And to us, these are the most important. And with their help, it would be much easier to solve these problems. Just as what I could say, that such conferences are very important. It's important to talk about these issues and these matters, but it is also important that legislation are not only published on CDs or are in libraries on paper where nobody is dealing with them, but that they should be present in real life too. That what we are now talking about, this mutual respect, that we should listen to one another, trust that all this are being lived and being practiced, and this legislation is are implemented in our everyday lives. I think that would make a real difference. Yes, me too. I believe that experts or teachers who are present in these situations, there are trainings going on. For example, the school psychologist participated in a training like this, and after this, it's really, it really made a difference, because until that she was just praying for us, but now she really got tools, and it really was a success, because now our communication with her has become much better. Thank you for this thought. I think that this is a kind of area where it's important that both are present. On the one hand, the willingness to give support, and on the other hand, professionalism. Thank you very much for the participation, for all the valuable contributions. And now we've come to the end of this roundtable discussion. I believe that we had really a safe space for this for this discussion, because many delicate issues were mentioned too. Thank you for the participants. Thank you to the audience. And well, let's continue with this. If you have any questions to the experts, just feel free to ask them. If you need support, if you need help, we are there for you. Can the business cards be taken away? Yes, no problem. You can take you can tease these name cards that you have received. You can take these back home. So thank you once again.